Imagine a country so rich in oil that its land sits on one of the world's most valuable natural resources. Yet for decades, that same country had to import the gasoline it used every single day. Gas was bought abroad, shipped in on tankers, refined by someone else, and then sold back to the very nation that pumped the crude oil out of the ground in the first place. That country was Nigeria, a place that should have been energy wealthy, yet became dependent. A nation famous for exporting oil but unable to fuel itself. Then came the project that promised to rewrite everything. A refinery so massive that if it succeeded, Nigeria's economic fate would shift overnight. A refinery that almost collapsed more than once. And at the center of it all stood one man who was willing to bet his entire empire to make it real. The Dangote Refinery is not just an industrial facility. It is a symbol of a country trying to take back control of its own story. Built at a cost of $19 billion, it sits on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean in Lagos's Lekki Free Zone, stretching across more than 2,600 hectares. You could stand inside the complex and barely see the far end of it. This refinery is officially the largest single-train refinery on Earth. That means one integrated processing system, one massive line, one unified operation without parallel anywhere else. At full capacity, it can process 650,000 barrels of crude oil every single day. That is more than the total daily fuel consumption of Nigeria itself. For decades, Nigeria exported crude oil, waited for foreign refineries to process it, and bought back the gasoline at a premium. Now, for the first time in living memory, Nigeria has the capacity to refine its own oil, produce its own gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel, and even export the surplus across West and Southern Africa. Inside the refinery, work never stops. More than 38,000 people operate the facility, engineers monitoring pressure systems, welders maintaining pipelines, chemists analyzing composition, logistics teams coordinating shipments, and security forces ensuring the site runs smoothly. From the control rooms filled with screens and indicators to the tank farms spreading across the horizon, every part of the refinery is designed to function like a living organism. Nigeria's fuel tankers, once powered by diesel, are now shifting to compressed natural gas systems to cut emissions and stabilize supply. Pipelines deliver refined products across the country, reaching gas stations in cities hundreds of kilometers apart. What once required waiting for imported fuel now flows from Nigeria's own ground, through its own pipes, into its own markets. But what makes this project more compelling isn't just its engineering, it's how close it came to failure. Aliko Dangote is one of Africa's most famous businessmen, known for his cement empire, his sugar factories, and his influence in markets from Lagos to Nairobi. Yet the refinery required something his previous ventures never demanded. He had to gamble everything. When the Nigerian currency plunged between 2016 and 2019, the cost of construction exploded. Imported components became far more expensive, financing grew difficult, and the project's budget ballooned. Banks hesitated. Investors grew uneasy. The refinery risked becoming a monument to ambition rather than accomplishment. So Dangote pledged his shares, his assets, his companies, even portions of his personal wealth as collateral. Meetings stretched late into the night. Agreements were renegotiated. Contractors were persuaded to stay. It was a gamble most billionaires would never make. Inside the facility, the engineering stakes were just as intense. A refinery of this scale is not turned on like a switch. The systems need to sync perfectly. Pressure, temperature, feedstock ratios, catalyst functions, safety overrides. A single error could cost millions in lost crude or worse, trigger catastrophic failure. So during the critical startup days, in early 2024, teams worked in shifts around the clock. Every beep on a monitor felt like a heartbeat. Every small fluctuation called for immediate response. Operators stood ready. Veterans from refineries across the world worked alongside newly trained Nigerian engineers. When the first output flowed successfully, it was not only a technical achievement. It was a moment when the country's future shifted. The refinery was real. It had worked. The gamble had paid off. Yet the story does not end at the refinery gates. This refinery did not rise in isolation. It stands as part of a transformation reshaping the entire region. Just a few kilometers away is one of the most strategically important ports in West Africa, the Lekki Deep Sea Port. Built at a cost of around $1.5 billion, it is West Africa's deepest harbor, capable of welcoming enormous container ships that older Nigerian ports could not handle. It stretches across 90 hectares, equipped with cranes that tower over the shoreline. Its design capacity of 2.7 million containers per year positions it as a new engine for trade. Goods that once had to route through Togo, Ghana, or Côte d'Ivoire can now come directly into Nigeria. For Lagos, this could mean becoming a true gateway between Africa and the global market. Yet with great projects come deep controversies. The ownership structure of the port places 75% control in the hands of private foreign investors, especially Tolaram Group and China Harbor Engineering. The Lagos state government holds 20%, and the Nigerian Ports Authority only 5%. Critics argue that a 45-year concession grants too much control to outsiders. Some accuse the port of being built on promises that have yet to materialize, including projections of 200,000 new jobs. Labor unions ask where the verified numbers are. Parliamentary committees have requested multiple audits. Supporters say development requires risk. Opponents say sovereignty must be protected. The debate is far from settled. Then there is Eko Atlantic, the futuristic coastal city rising from land, reclaimed from the Atlantic Ocean. Once the site of Bar Beach, now it is a zone of luxury towers, foreign embassies, high-end business districts, and wide boulevards. It is marketed as Africa's Dubai. It has attracted billion-dollar investors and global attention. Built on 10 square kilometers of reclaimed land, it is protected by the Great Wall of Lagos, an 8.5-kilometer seawall engineered to withstand flooding and ocean surges. Supporters call it climate-resilient infrastructure at its best. Critics call it a fortress for the wealthy built at the expense of the communities who once lived and worked along the coast. Fishermen displaced from Bar Beach have filed lawsuits. Families insist that erosion along nearby coastlines has worsened due to the city's construction. Developers deny responsibility, pointing to environmental studies in their favor. Engineers and community leaders continue to clash in public forums and courtrooms. Eko Atlantic rises upward while the disputes beneath it remain unresolved. Nigeria's ambitions extend across its entire geography. The Lagos-Calabar Coastal Railway is one of the largest rail projects in the country's history. Running more than 1,400 kilometers, it connects 11 states and 22 planned stations. The promise is simple: link markets, move goods faster, unify a region through transportation. Yet progress has been uneven. Land disputes have triggered protests. Families insist on fair compensation. Government officials attempt to balance development with livelihoods. Construction crews continue their work, kilometer by kilometer, often under intense pressure. Meanwhile, the Sokoto-Badagry Highway is envisioned as a 6-lane link across the country, built for heavy goods transport and equipped to support rail. For traders and commuters, these roads and rails could reshape daily life. For those displaced, they represent memories bulldozed in the name of national progress. Behind every transformation lies a price, and Nigeria's price is enormous. The Ministry of Finance estimates that the country needs $2.3 trillion in infrastructure spending between 2020 and 2043 to meet economic demands. That is a number so large that it dwarfs annual budgets. It is nearly 70% of the nation's GDP. Meanwhile, the annual allocation for road construction in 2024 stands at less than $1 billion. The funding gap is massive. The country leans on international partners like the World Bank to fill technology and development gaps. But every loan increases the national debt burden. Policy analysts warn that without careful management, debt could become the next national crisis. Advocates argue that infrastructure is the foundation of development. Critics say the pace must be controlled. The debate reflects a country attempting to grow faster than its resources allow. So what does the refinery truly represent? More than fuel production. More than a business venture. It represents self-determination. It represents a country tired of being told what it cannot do, tired of relying on foreign refineries, tired of being rich in resources yet limited in control. The Dangote Refinery signals a turning point. If the refinery meets its targets, if expansion pushes capacity toward 1.4 million barrels per day, if exports continue to rise, Nigeria will not only fuel itself, it will fuel its neighbors. It will shape regional prices. It will control supply chains that once controlled it. The refinery marks the beginning of Nigeria, acting not just as a supplier of crude commodities but as a producer of finished value. This is the story of a nation attempting to redefine itself. A country building infrastructure at a scale rarely seen before. A story filled with ambition, sacrifice, risk, debate, and unstoppable momentum. What happens next depends on leadership, stability, and accountability. The projects are real. The progress is visible. The stakes are enormous. The outcome will define Nigeria's future for generations.